I'm live. Okay. Good evening, and welcome to Real Talks for Real Life. This is your girl Rhashonna, the truth teller. I am here this evening with my guest, who is the former mayor of Irvington Township, Mr. Wayne Smith, Mayor Emeritus. He is here, as if you look at the title, and the title said, "Experience is the best teacher." So I thought to have him on and just to talk a little bit about the upcoming elections. He is in Essex County. He's been around politics, as I like to say, for quite some time. And so he's going to give us some insight and some thoughts on the election, the state politics and policies that are moving in the legislature and those that may have been stalled. He is a businessman and he provides lots and lots of services to the community. Most notably is grassroots marketing. He will do political analysis. And so I'm going to bring in my guest for this evening, Mayor Wayne Smith, former
Hello.
mayor of Irvington Township.
Well, thank you. I'm delighted to be with you this evening. Good.
You're
Love
welcome.
to have the opportunity to talk with you.
I'm glad that you're here. How have you been during COVID? How's your
Well,
family?
yeah, COVID has been a challenge for all of us. We're slowly walking our way out of it, but we've been able to do some business during this environment, and I'm glad that we're winding down because this was a really challenging time for families, for the communities that we all live and work and play in, and we're hopefully working our way to some degree of normalcy step by step and doing it with the eye on caution.
I agree. Yeah, I'm glad you're doing well. But thank you for coming again very much.
No, I'm delighted to be here. Glad you're doing this forum so people can get an opportunity to hear different views and points of views. I think one of the challenges for the community is that there's a lack of diverse media where you can have all kinds of local conversations. I mean, there's all kinds of media. I mean, we read the New York Times and you have national media. We watch CNN. Of course, you got Fox News, but local content is really struggling to find a place where you can find out what's going on in your own neighborhood, in your own town, etc. So it's good that you're providing a forum for people can have these kind of conversations.
Well, thank you. I actually came up with the concept because on our city council, they told me I couldn't talk for more than 5 minutes, and I like to talk and tell the truth. So I said, I'm gonna tell the truth, and I'm gonna tell it when I get ready. So this is kind of born from that. But thank you, because you know what, and also there's a lot of propaganda also.
Absolutely.
You can't afford flyers and fancy media, and I don't have the luxury.
During the pandemic, you can't really talk to people like you used to with flyers and get out there. So you got to use the various electronic forms of media available to you so that you can communicate with people.
Yeah, and I like this platform. This is pretty cool, and my sister, introduced it to me, so I appreciate her for that. But so yeah, let's talk politics, shall we?
Yes, we shall.
We have lots of mutual friends, and we kind of were running in the same circles in a quasi, sense. But so talk about how you got into politics and when you ran for mayor. Let's start there.
So it's interesting. I've always been involved in business. And so one of the lessons as a young businessman that some of my mentors had told me, they said, if you want to grow your firm, your business, and I was primarily marketing various insurance products at the time. And they said, get involved with, your local political committee, get involved in some campaigns, you meet people and so forth. So I said, yeah, of course, I had bought a house in Irvington and our entire family moved there. So I said, okay, I'm going to get involved. So I guess the kind of the first periphery, I was appointed to the Community Relations Committee by my local councilman name was Anthony Blasi, and Blasi had served as mayor. Okay. And then I was asked to be on the town's recreation committee, and then I got engaged with some other folks. Councilman Bilal Beasley, who was a good friend, was trying to really organize the Black community to take power in Irvington. So I got involved with his campaign efforts and so forth, helped him. And then in 1990, we kind of made our major breakthrough because we ran a young man who grew up in Irvington. His family had been there for a long time. He had been quasi a part of the establishment because he had been the business administrator for the city, and so forth. So Mike Steele decided he also had been the business administrator for the school district. So he decided to run for mayor. And 1990 was an interesting time because we had looked at the data and we saw in, I guess it was 1984 when Jesse Jackson ran for president. Jesse carried Irvington.
Okay.
So then we looked at, I think it was a gubernatorial election around that time, like 85. The late great Kenneth Allen Gibson had run for governor in the Democratic primary. I think he finished third statewide, but of course won Irvington. Okay. And then we ran a candidate. I think it was like 86. There was a young man who had served on the city council. He was a sheriff's officer. He ran for mayor, and he did not beat the incumbent, but he did place second. And so in 1990, we figured with a little bit of better organization and coalescing with all the people who had interest in the future of Irvington, particularly in the Black community, we got all of them in the room. And out of that conversation, Mike Steele emerged as a candidate we were going to support running for mayor. And so Mike was successful in 1990. And after that campaign, he asked me to come on board with him as his confidential aide, which is equivalent to a chief of staff. So that really got my foot in. And, I kept my business going on the side, but I was really, really entrenched with Michael. And then at some point in his term, Michael took a job at that time, the mayor appointed the school district. Okay. And so Michael was also at the time the school business administrator and the mayor. And there was that there were conflicts of interest and so forth and so on. So through that 4-year term, Michael didn't get reelected. Okay. And it was interesting because Sarah Bose succeeded Michael as mayor. So she, African-American female, had been council president. So she succeeded Michael as mayor. And I worked for her for, a lot of people don't notice when Michael left, I didn't immediately go out the door. I ended up, because it was such a bloody election, there was no transition. Yeah. So I ended up working for Sarah for 3 months. And Sarah served. And then in 1990, so that was 90 to 94. And then in 96, there became a vacancy on the city council. A guy named Patrick McNally, who is now deceased, he got elected Essex County clerk. So there was a vacancy at large on the Irvington Municipal Council. So a group who had been active trying to do some things in town said, maybe you should run for the council, the vacancy. So, of course, so you went to some friends and we raised a few dollars and decided to throw a hat in the arena. And at that time, a good friend of mine who ended up, she also ran, Sandy Hart. And the mayor was not supporting me because I was not part of her team. So she supported Sandy. And then we had Pat McNally supported a guy who's now, he's either a retired police chief or police chief. I mean, he's either a captain or a retired captain. So he supported this young man. He was going to leave the police department and serve on the city council. So so there was a perception that they were going to divide the Black vote. So I ended up beating them both. Really smashed election. And of course, that was a special election. There was 2 years left on his term. I served those 2 years, and then I ran 4 years later for my own 4-year term. And and then mid my second term, around 98, my colleagues had chose me for council president, and I became council president in 98. And then in 2002, Sarah had an unfortunate situation where she couldn't serve, and I ended up running. It was a very tight election because Assemblyman Stanley decided at that time you could hold 2 offices. Right. He decided to run for mayor as well, and so that tightened the race up, and it was very, very close. But as they would say, what's for you is for you. So I ended up winning that race, and then I served 3 consecutive terms as mayor of the township of Irvington for 12 years.
Yeah, because you guys were doing, you were doing it good over there in Irvington. Like I was still living
it is a tough job. We had some issues around crime and other things during that time. Most urban communities at that time were struggling with that. But we had some development going, and right in the smack of some of the development, we did get some projects done, and I was very, very excited about that. Irvington was back on the map. We bought some very exciting things for the community, like Summer in the Zone. We bought people like Angela Bofield, Gerald Levert before his death. We had Stephanie Mills in Irvington, all free concerts for the community. But yeah, so we were doing some really exciting things. So at my tenure at Irvington, I really enjoyed serving as mayor. And but there were some tough times. We ran into the recession during Obama's term, where the economy just kind of tanked, and all that development almost came to a standstill. People were losing their jobs, and it was a really tough economic times. But we overcame that, and so forth. So that's kind of my story.
Well, I appreciate you for telling your story and just letting folks know that if you have a desire to serve, all you have to do is network and make the right connections, right?
Yeah, it is. And I think, one of the challenges there are three parts to a successful candidate and a campaign. I call it the I of, is the issues. So you have to be talking to the voters about the issues that they're concerned about, or the issues that are most important to them. You have to have some kind of organizational framework to work out of. So, obviously, if you're in a partisan town and I was fortunate because I was in a nonpartisan city.
Right.
So I didn't have to deal with an established, entrenched machine. Because I didn't have to go to anybody just to get the party line. We end up, Newark is very similar capacity. So I was able to win a nonpartisan election, even though I am a Democrat.
Right.
So you got to have some organization, and I would suggest people who are looking at, if you have a faith tradition, start there. Maybe there are friends and allies within that faith tradition who work with you. Be a joiner. Be involved in different civic and social clubs and organizations, because you got to find people, if you're going to serve in public life, who believe in the vision, believe in you, that you have something to offer the community. And you have to organize them to do, people think that politics is you wave your hand and say hello and you get known and it's a lot more than that, because everybody you're waving at doesn't vote. So the nitty gritty of it is, in order to win elections, you have to determine the person who wins election is the person who gets the most people out to the polls to vote for them. All the other stuff is really window dressing to that. So, but you have to have some kind of organizational framework to do that. And that might mean, tenant associations, the traditional political parties. It could be block associations. But you better have a network of people that are out there working on your behalf, or believe in the issues that you're out there promoting. And then the last part is the most difficult part. It's like being in business is you've got to be able to pay for all of that. You
Absolutely.
So it's issues, organization, and finance. You've got to be able to either, if you're not Phil Murphy or John Corzine or one of those folks who have got a bottomless pit, then you've got to figure out how you raise money and what a campaign costs. And all those things that you get in the mail and all those signs that you see cost money, and you've got to raise that money from somewhere. So you've got to figure out how you do that. And, our old chicken dinners and fish dinners and all that might buy you a few stamps, but it doesn't get you to the scale and some of the cost of campaign. Local elections are probably costing people $50 to $60, maybe up to $100,000 these days.
Because there's competition out there.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. In a highly contested race where you mail to a significant number of voters, you may have to do robocalls. With pre-pandemic and pre the decline of the newspaper industry, you would do ads in newspapers and so forth. So you would give out your own palm cards. You would give out literature. So all that, and you want the stuff to look good, so it costs money. So remember, it's the I of you got, and however you get your message out is not free. Generally, it's not free. You have to pay. Yeah, you have to pay something.
I agree. So So I hope that the people who I've invited several candidates to watch, because there are people who are running and they're running off the line. And then you have some people who are running, within an organization, but it's not really, I don't know how to say it other than to say that, they might be with those people, but those people might not be 100% with them. Because I personally had that experience.
There was always fights within the party, there's always some kind of political infighting. So, I was advising someone out of state on the campaign. They were talking about running for mayor. And one of the things that we talked about in them choosing a campaign manager, I said, well, you have to make sure you choose people that want you to win more than you do.
Right. Right.
And that will go to bat and fight for you, even when you don't feel like fighting for yourself. And, and don't pick a person who carries more baggage than you. You got to fight their battles, and they got 1,000 enemies and all that.
Yeah.
So, but it's a diplomatic walk for anybody who wants to be in politics, for sure.
So you talked about the infighting in the political party. I know. So now, first, before I go into the conflicting races, I want to just say my opinion. I prefer if the whole state could be like a nonpartisan May election like you all are, because that eliminates, and I don't know if you heard about the controversy with the ballots now, the new ballots, the League of Women Voters.
There's a lawsuit. There's a lawsuit. Not only are they complaining, there's an active lawsuit which organizations like the New Jersey Institute of Social Justice and others have filed America's briefs in support of their actions, saying it deprives people of their constitutional right to have a fair voice, that the party system locks people out because the prime ballot excess, in Essex, they always say line A all the way. So when you get to line A, you can be the best candidate in the world, but if you're anything other than line A, you won't stand a chance, or a very slim chance to win. And there's a twofold argument there. The voters have to be better educated about how the choices and things work, but at the same time, the process has to open up a lot more, so that people can have a square shot at participating. And even with that, though, you still got to have those components that I talked about. Message got to be right. Got to have some kind of organization that does stuff for you, and you got to have the funds. Even with ballot access, you still got to get your message out to the voters.
Yeah. So I think that they should really take their lawsuit seriously. Only for me, because I feel like, having ran off the line, and then, you see your position on the ballot, and if people aren't going out to vote for you, they're going to vote, the party line, because that's what they're used to.
They used to vote in the line and going across. So we used to tell people, we would tell people the two things we would try to do to overcome some of that in all kinds of elections is, if I'm a candidate, whatever you do, find my name first.
That's right.
Vote for me, and then vote for whoever else you want. And then we would create ballots where we would circle them. So that, we should tell people, put it in your coat pocket, so that when you get inside behind the curtain, you can pull it out and lay it up against the ballot and you vote.
Right.
So if you like this person, you can vote there. You can go off the line to vote for this. So it's some of it could be overcome if you had the resources, but it's very difficult if you don't, and it's very difficult because people are accustomed to just voting straight across, and so they lose.
Yeah, well, that's how I learned how to vote too, and I refuse to vote that way ever again. I even wrote in my book, you heard about my book, Plantation Politics, right?
No, I have to get it, so we'll talk about how I get it after the show.
Yes, Plantation Politics. It took me 8 years to recognize.
I think I saw it on LinkedIn or somewhere when you announced that you had written the book.
So it's just, it's a short book. It's an easy read, and I just chronicle my 8 years in the city council. But what I was getting to was, we have all of the ballots, and then I would think that the constitutional officers, in my opinion, should not be running with a party. Like in our county, our clerk and our sheriff run with the politicers. And I don't think
so particularly the clerk who runs elections.
Yeah.
So, but that's a New Jersey law. See, so remember, this is one of the lessons we have to, teach our people. All of this is dictated to by law. So that means, in addition to, we got the laws changed. I mean, we've got to figure out how do you get these things changed, and a lot of it is, part of it is what you're doing is educating people that this is what happens. And this is how the systems work. If you want to change it, this is what you got. Somebody's got to introduce a bill to say, the clerk should be a nonpartisan job. And
absolutely.
So, I mean, those are realistic things. It's interesting that the municipal clerks don't run for office. They're the
and that's interesting.
Yeah, but the county clerk does, because the county's constitutions are set up. And remember, people don't know that you got all of these things are dictated by a constitution. Every subdivision of the state is a creation of the state, and all of those things are dictated to by law. So oftentimes we put people in places as lawmakers, but we never challenge them to make laws that we think needs to be changed. And sometimes they win and sometimes they don't, but at the end of the day, if those are the issues that we're concerned about, then we have to lean on the legislators who represent us to do it. And, it's not personal, it's business. And, sometimes you add to, I think it's Frederick Douglass to say, those who want to agitate and not get flowers without the rain, it's not going to happen. So people get, when we take positions sometimes that are not the party establishment doesn't like, then you're going to rub some people the wrong way. But that's the nature of a democracy. We don't always agree. We should be civil at best and be able to negotiate our way through all that. But we're going to disagree, and that's the nature of life. That's the nature of the democracy. And I don't know how you get out of that. But yeah, so part of it is you keep the debate alive, but you work till you're strong enough to change stuff. And that's what I tell young people. We're going through this activist wave right now of the Black Lives Matter movement. It reminds me of the 60s in a great deal, which tells you a little bit about how old I am.
I wasn't going to date you.
But it's a great thing because that level, we haven't seen that level of activism. And so, when you talk to the younger people, they tell you like nobody's ever did anything before. And I said, we did that. And that's fine. You should be doing it too. And what happens is people get frustrated because the system is not easy to change.
Yeah.
And so the true leadership is who has the staying power to fight through these particular changes. And so sometimes you lose some races. I've been in some winning campaigns and some losing campaigns. It's much better to win, I'll tell you.
Right.
But if you want to effectuate change, you have to go through that process to do it. And I think Reverend Sharpton was saying this the other day. We didn't elect people because we just want them to sit up there, and we want them to effectuate change that we think benefits the people.
So that's important too, because all of the state seats are up for re-election, or if they do have opposition, and often, so when you say you have to have staying power, I support actually term limits on the state offices on purpose, because, and I get how long it takes to get things done. However, if you can't get the cooperation in 9 years, then you need to move on and try something else at the end of the day, right?
Yeah, that's something. So the other argument to that is the people would say is then the voters should kick him out, so he would go out. But so then we go back to that same argument, but the party entrenched clubhouse keeps them there.
Oh yeah.
Oh
yeah. So that's a big thing for me, having the constitutional officers not be affiliated with a party when they run for their office. That was what I was going to say. But now I want to talk about a constitution. Is the sheriff considered, one of those offices?
One of the constitution, right? I think it's the clerk, the sheriff,
the clerk,
the surrogate.
What do you call it?
The surrogate.
The surrogate. Let me tell you something. I invited my surrogate to my community meeting in 2020 via social like this. They were unable to come. They couldn't send anybody. So I tried it again. They still no response. So I reached out to your surrogate in your county. they were so pleasant and so happy to help them. They'll be on the 17th. And then suddenly I get a call from my surrogate.
Well, you embarrassed them into the action, I guess.
Because Essex County called them and wanted to know why I was reaching out to their office.
Yeah. So and a lot of people don't know the surrogate is the equivalent to a judge.
Right. And but it's a whole office. And when you're surrogate, then the deputy surrogate, nobody wants to participate. And this is just my opinion. It's all about politics, right? Because I was on the line with the surrogate one year.
Yeah, sure.
So guess what? Everybody who voted for me, I'm telling them to vote all the way up that column. So I'm helping you get that seat, but then you don't want to help communicate to our community what your office is and what the business is that you can provide. So anyway, I'm just saying. So
every public servant should be about their job. After the election is over, and I would run into problems with it because sometimes people who didn't support me would call for something, and I took care. Listen, at that point, you're a public servant. You do the job for all the people. That's what you would like to do. And I think that goes to every public position, regardless of where people were in the election. You deal with them on the election battlefield. There's a forum for that, and there's a forum to do your public duties. And so, that's how that goes. I agree with you. So a lot of people don't know that the surrogate is the equivalent to a judge, in addition to creating wills and all of that. The surrogate also has the power. He appoints judges to take over for people when there's no will in place and people die with not no management of their assets and so forth. So they manage some resources. And the surrogate doesn't have to be a lawyer.
Right.
people
don't know that.
Yeah, no, so it doesn't have to be a lawyer. Yeah, absolutely. So I remember Earl Harris was a surrogate in Essex County. It was the late Earl Harris, the former Newark City Councilman. I said, well, wait a minute, Earl ain't no lawyer. And then I started to look at that and say, so yeah, it doesn't have to be a lawyer, but his role is as a judge.
Right. So let's talk about the sheriff in Essex County. So there's an election for sheriff. How long has your sheriff been there? I think he's been as long as my oldest son, 25 years, right?
Yeah, Sheriff Fontoura's been there quite a while. I know him and I know his opponent, John Arnold. Both have good law enforcement experience. I won't tell you who I'm for, but I will tell you that. Yeah, but listen, it's going to be an interesting race, and I think John is going to have a challenging time beating that party machinery. I think that people thought with this win of Black Lives Matters that people would be interested in saying we've never had a black sheriff. Maybe that's the time, but we shall see. It was one of the things that the party apparatus are good at is people who are beholden to that for their jobs and whatever things that they have or their contracts, they get out and support their candidate. And so I don't know how much John has raised. I do know he had a couple of fundraisers and so forth, but I think he's in a difficult fight. I hope ideally, he does well. So maybe there's something for him in the future if he doesn't win on upcoming Tuesday. Yeah. So, but it's a race, and we never know. I know people like Steffi Bartley from Nan has endorsed him, and people are there was one attack during the campaign where they talked about the sheriff at some announcement or something was in a car accident. They didn't report it, so there's been a little fireworks in the campaign already. I think one of the PBA unions endorsed John. Another one endorsed the sheriff. So we'll see if that has any impact. All these things look good in the air, but at the end of the day, it's the people that come out on June 2nd. I don't see, because of the pandemic, I don't see the excitement around campaigns that you usually do. So I just don't know how the voters are going to react and what the voter turnout will be. During the presidential election, obviously we got unprecedented turnout. And that's a great thing, but the sad thing is that doesn't carry over into races, right after those presidential elections. So we had, there were two peaks. The Obama campaign saw unprecedented turnout, particularly in African American communities, and then this whole piece on both sides. The Trump army came out in droves, and the anti-Trump came out in droves, or the pro-Biden forces came out in droves. So you had the biggest presidential turnout in history.
Right.
If we could keep that same enthusiastic on the local level, from school board to the governor's race, then we would probably have the kind of debates. We would probably have more sensitivity to people's issues and so forth. But they can almost predict what turnout will be. In an off-gubernatorial year for the legislature is the worst turnouts ever. And so that means
I know that people don't even know there's an election on Tuesday. A lot of people, I'm making phone calls.
It's like, so, we can't go to sleep. Trump is not the end all be all. He's out.
Right.
And, we got to, President Biden, I'm sure, will do what he can. And we have, part of the political dynamic is you get a candidate elected, but you have to stay on them to make sure that agenda that you want is carried out. And that agenda can change from time to time. So, that's why these companies hire lobbyists, pay attention to everything that goes on, whether it's on a, state level. Most of the things on state level affect businesses. But even on a local level, they pay attention if if zoning is going to affect how they operate, or if, commercial taxes, are going to get hit to it. So the chambers and other, they have lobbyists who come out and pay it. So we have, we almost have to pay attention to that. Some of the suggestions I have is we've got to really organize at a very basic level. Somebody in the family should be responsible for talking to people about, even though nobody would, don't ever have those conversations. But we got to know what, listen, everybody goes, the kids got to go to school. So what's going on in the school system? All of us pay.
My uncle was our champion. May he rest in peace. Willie Rowe, he was our champion for the education kids and, for political stuff. So you would see him everywhere with his little notebook and he would tell you the truth.
Yeah. But we got to find somebody in family who educates us. And then we got to extend that to our neighborhood. Okay. We live on a block. Block associations are the number one thing that deter crime. But things like, on your agenda, things that affect you in the city, well, taxes going up, why? If we need, there's a controversial discussion about whether or not we should have more police or less police. What's going on in our school? We got a neighborhood school here. Can the kids read coming out of it?
How about that?
And then citywide, you try to find out forms where you can expand that influence. As a councilwoman, I served on the city council 6 years, mayor for 12 years, chief of staff for a mayor for 4. That if there's an active block where 90% of the people, they ain't got to call too many times for people start paying them attention, because they're an active block. When I was a young man, there was a congressman whose staffer taught me a lesson. I was about 18, 19 years old. And then I'll tell you, it was Pete Rodino, staff person. And he said to me, we had met him somewhere and we're talking. And he taught one of my really first political lessons. He said, we're going to do this because it's the right thing to do. And he showed me a sheet. Now, if 20 people from this neighborhood, now people don't know you can know if they voted or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I voted for you. So when I go look and see they ain't even vote. So, but people don't know you have the ability to do that. So he said, look, in this block, only 7 people voted. So they can scream all they want. I'm going to do it. I'm going to help them. But over here, it was 40 families. Out of the 40 families, about 2 or 3 people in each family voted. So if they call, who should I respond to first?
Right.
He said, well, for my boss's needs, I'm going to help everybody, but I'm probably going to get over here first.
Right.
And I was, because we're taught you help everybody in democracy, but the reality
They
is, the squeaky
prioritize.
wheel does get
Listen.
there.
I see them prioritizing too, and I get it. And I'm gonna tell you a really quick story about that. In our neighborhood, well, my neighborhood specifically, I have one of the largest populations. My residents around here, and so now it's starting to change, and a lot of people are moving out, and so new people are moving in, and so a lot of the people that are moving in may not be registered to vote because they may not be eligible yet.
Right.
So I had an experience. I'm not going to say who. One of the elected officials in my city, who, kind of invades everybody's territory and wants to be in everything because they want to take credit for it, had the audacity to say, when I called to follow up on the issue, they don't vote, they're not citizens. So I was floored and disappointed, because it was a real issue. And so it was escalated.
It was a humanist, not a political.
Absolutely. And that should have nothing to do with your status. And so when I do see how people prioritize. And
so
funny.
I tell young political operatives, I was observing somebody in this campaign, and they were knocking on the door, and they didn't have a list in their hand. So I said, "Why are you knocking on the door?" I said, "Why are you knocking on that door?" Because I happen to know this. He said, "Oh, well, I want to talk to the people." I said, "Well, that's good. Are they registered to vote?" He said, "Oh," I said, you shouldn't come out here unless you have a list." So I used to get, you skipped over my house. Now I done looked at the list, know the person that we talked to, not registered.
Right,
so
right.
Back to you, get his number, get his address. We go back there and try to register you to vote. But the person I want to talk to has the ability to come out and whether or not you get an opportunity to serve or not. And
right.
Well, you skipped over my house. No, I ain't skip over your house. I just I only have a limited amount of time. I can only talk to the people who are going to vote on June, May, whatever, or June, whatever it is. So that's just the reality of it's like
I know
it's business. Everybody can't buy your product. So if I'm selling Rolls Royces, and you in the Volkswagen market, you're not in my market. So if you don't necessarily vote on the political side, then there's not much conversation you can do to people. But on a humane side, that's different. Every public official should be committed to basic humanity. So you got to service everything. It's a public office. But when you're trying to navigate how you get to that public office, that's a whole different story.
Right. I totally agree with the strategy because I would do the same thing because we're partisan here. So when I would skip the Republican, I'll never forget the woman said to me, "You don't want my vote?" I said, "I'm going to talk to you, but right now it's primary season."
Yeah,
so
I'm targeting. I'll talk to you after June.
After I win, So I absolutely went and spoke with her, and she has my support to this day. I have her support, I should say. But So we're talking, and that's all awesome. But so Mr. Arnold, I wish him well. I actually reached out to him, invited him to give his real perspective to the people because Essex County is not just Black folks and Latinos. And I felt like when I'm watching his campaign, I'm looking at them and they're going after the incumbent. Talk about you. And I learned that firsthand,
Well, First, you can attack somebody, but tell me what you're going to do. Most voters want to know what are you going to do different from the person that you're opposing. If you want to serve in that place, what are you going to do that's better and different? And so you better have that narrative that that comes under the rubric of issues. When you're out there talking, we can. So I used to always say this was my pat slogan. I'm not running against anybody. I'm running for this office because I want to do X, Y, and Z.
Right. And that's why I appreciate Jamel Holly, right? He is an establishment guy. However, he's running against his own establishment on purpose because he has issues and he intends to make sure they are addressed, right? So if you're watching this, folks, you can go back and watch Assemblyman Holly, and we were talking about legislative issues. But so that's why I appreciate his campaign because he's not beat for Joe, right? He's talking about, what he thinks we are lacking at the Senate level. So that's important when you're running.
I think Jamal, one of his challenges is going to be you can't serve with a person for many years and then all of a sudden say they're how did he describe them? What's the sheriff's name in during the Dr. King days who sick the dogs or the people? He called them.
I don't remember his name.
But you call, I said, well, wait a minute, you served in the legislature with the guy. So so those things can present a challenge for people to say, some people will say, well, didn't you serve with him for umpteen years? Now all of a sudden he's the worst guy in the world. So I think we have to always temper our arguments, like you say, with facts. And what you're going to do as opposed to trying to, bloody up. And listen, negative campaigns do work. I hate to admit it, but
they worked on me.
Yeah, they do work. I mean, some people, they say something negative will fly around town quicker than something positive will. So,
right.
So, and it don't have to be true. We found this out from the conspiracy theories in the presidential election. So, so those people who deployed, I have not been a big advocate of it. I will say there's nothing wrong with contrasting the record. So if you did this and I did this, fine. That's fair game. But just to harangue people and to get personal, and I mean, and I call it the politics of personal destruction. There are a lot of people who play that game. It's not a game that I cared to play. Yeah. So, but people do play it, and so you have to be prepared if you're in the political world today, because there's all forms of organization, I guess, or fields of study or whatever change and evolve. Some to a positive height, and then there's some negative stuff. So I see a lot more negative campaigning since I got out of the game than when I was in it. It was kind of people's records was fair game, but you didn't you didn't really talk about people's families and all of that. But that it is what it is today. And the voters have an opportunity to discipline everybody.
And that's the facts. The only thing is we have to connect to them. And this is, I'm really trying to get the folks out, all over to realize it doesn't matter where you are, because most of the issues are the same. And how you get that person in office is always the same. You go and you vote. In the city of Newark, for example, those voters are fatigued. Between April with the school board, and then in any given year, you have a May election. And now we have our primary every 2 years. People are tired in some cities. And so it's important that people understand the significance of voting in every election. So now.
There's a good point that you raised. And, in retrospect, looking at the cost of elections.
Yes.
So some people would argue, and I've been in those debates when I was very active, that the school board elections will get swallowed up in the general elections, but many towns have moved them to the general election. That's an extra cost and burden on the taxpayers and the school board turnouts are really so low. So now I really see what people are saying. Well, maybe more people will participate now. As the ballots are constituted, people will probably never get to the board candidates
to the bottom.
But you do save money when you consolidate those elections into one day. And now, how do we get the right focus and attention? I think we all work that out. But now when you start to talk about the cost of elections for school board, and then you got to, whether you're doing a May election or a June primary, I see a lot of towns have moved their school board elections to November's general election.
Right, we did.
Yeah, so that, to me, that makes sense, because for the handful of people that come out in the school board election, it's really like a cost to the taxpayers that we really shouldn't have to bear. But each town can make that call to do it, so the voters would have to demand that. But that's why I say these are forums like this, where some dialogue can take place in a way that people might have an opportunity to see the alternative views about certain topics. Is a great one.
Yeah. So since you've been away from the pile of tricks, what are you doing with yourself now? Talk about your business.
So I have a marketing and PR firm, and I do a lot of work around what we call, it's a consulting firm, we call urban development. So, one of the things that has happened for me is a lot of New York developers have come into New Jersey looking for opportunities. And a lot of them don't know the urban landscape of New Jersey whatsoever. So we guide them through the processes. We look at for some potential deals for them. I've got a couple of things going. a couple projects I've done in Newark. I've got some things even in Irvington. So, and then of course, we do some other things. I do want to talk about an interesting project I'm working on with a company called Dazzling and Styles. They're doing a pop-up shop at 59 Market Street on June 26th. And one of the components of the pop-up shop is that we have a group of youth entrepreneurs who were funded. They're being trained by the governor's faith-based initiative office. And so they're being educated about entrepreneurship, and some of them will have a table at this pop-up shop. I know that we have some podcasters, we have some fashion.
Say the address one more time and the date.
It's June 26th, 12 noon to 7 p.m. at 59 Market Street in Newark, New Jersey. It's right across the street from Essex County College. It's right on the corner. In fact, many people remember the building. It's a nice law office now, but it used to be the bookstore where people bought books.
Okay.
Yeah,
right. I know exactly what's that.
Yeah, right on the corner of University and Market. And so, if any of your listeners or viewers will come out and support, and most of the businesses are, I think about 98 or 99% are African-American owned small entrepreneurs or a host of various products, goods, and services. So come out. So this is an example of some of the things I've been working on. I was for a short while, about 3 years, I was the president of the South Orange Chamber of Commerce.
I know.
Yeah. And, people don't know my history. I really started the first African-American chamber in the state.
Okay.
Many years ago. And, at the current chamber, which John Harmon runs, is a good friend of mine, was the Trenton Metropolitan Chamber of Commerce. And then we started the Black Urban Alliance, which is the African American Chamber of Commerce of New Jersey and New York. And we grew the chamber a couple of years. And that's when politics interfered with that, because I got elected to the city council and just got too busy. And the organization kind of drifted a little bit. But so, I've had a tremendous amount of experience in the business arena. And in 1995, this is pre my elected office days, I was a delegate to the 1995 White House Conference on Small Business with President Clinton organized. And I was one of the elected representatives representing business owners in the state of New Jersey. So, these are some of the things that my firm has been engaged in over the years, and we continue to do that kind of work.
Well, that's good, because we need it. We need, people who can identify with the actual market that they're serving,
Just one of the things I'd like to say, so our economic freedom is really tied into our political freedom. So, and when we talk about, who controls the purse strings of whether or not a family eats or not, can determine their political destiny. So I have always been one who advocated, figure out how you're going to earn a living so that nobody can pull your coattails or your coat to say, hey, wait a minute.
You can take it down.
So, and so that's the challenge for us in the public arena. Jesse Jackson say this thing, we get our votes from one side of town and our oats on another side of town. So, which means you get your resources over here and your votes over here. You can't serve two masters. You got to figure out how your economic independence. And then you can say and do and what you want to do, and don't worry about, the job that I had is gone because I took a different position than I thought it was the right position for the community I served, but my other income was affected by that position I took. And so,
and it's funny you say that, because a lot of politicians, I know they have said it out loud that, they were afraid for their job, so they did this or the other thing. And I'm a public employee, I have no shame that I do work because I like to serve the public. But let me tell you something, you come for my, my check, then you have to have a really good reason, because you can't tell me that because I disagree with you that it's going to be a problem. But I love, like, I'm a cosmetologist by trade, so I'm moving myself back into my industry. I can, prepare young folks to do what I did, which was excel until I started having kids. But, family first. I can't be behind the chair forever. So, well, listen, and what's funny? I ran into Reverend Jackson over the weekend. I was in Tulsa. And so Yes.
Oh, wow.
He looks good. He looks
Okay.
really well. We chatted for a few minutes, and he's familiar with my city, based on, clergy that were in my city. But yeah, he looks really well, and we chatted for a little while. I had to join the coalition.
Okay.
So
Oh, so you were down in Tulsa. How was that? Must have been exciting.
let me tell you something. So for me, first of all, I was just happy and excited that I wasn't, invited to be there. One of the reasons we went intentionally was to see Nehemiah Frank. He's a young brother who actually opened up a storefront for his newspaper. It's called Black Wall Street Times,
Oh,
right?
wow. Okay.
Yes, and his grandfather was a survivor of the massacre.
Oh, my
And
goodness.
so he's trying to get his business in the same, area. And,
Sure.
and it was so awesome. Like we marched in the memorial march with the locals because the politrickers canceled their event because John Legend wasn't going to come anymore once he found out that they weren't giving the money to the people. So it was a great experience. I listened to the mayor speak. Not the mayor, I'm sorry. I listened to the councilwoman. I met lots of people. And people don't understand the history that is in Tulsa and how, everybody want to talk about slavery reparations. That we need to be clear about reparations for our native indigenous people who, just because they brown, you want to call them Negroes or whatever, but that's not the case, right? So, but it was an awesome experience. Nehemiah's place is beautiful. The city where we were and for the festival and everything, it was nice. And the people were just so awesome. The only thing I was weirded out by was like the bologna thing that they do. And I was like, bologna? Like don't even get me started. But one of the girls that was, she's like, yeah, you don't like bologna? I said, not like that. So, yeah.
Oh, wow. That must have been
really good.
Yeah, that must have been an enriching experience. Wow. Yeah, I know some friends of mine who were down there. Dale Caldwell, who I think serves on the Board of Education at New Brunswick and runs a business program up at Fairleigh Dickinson. I think he went. They had something called Black Excellence, the conference going on at the same time in Tulsa. So there's a lot of, Tulsa had a lot of activity going on.
Yeah. The locals did the whole thing. It was like they had the Legacy, festival, and then they had the conference and everything right there in the center. But I was watching it on live stream because I was still kind of scared of all the people in one spot, so I would like go back and watch it. Yeah. So it was awesome though, and then to see the 3 surviving folks, right?
Yeah, the one woman was 107 years old, right? 107.
107, and her brother was a veteran, and they call him Uncle Red, and they're feisty. Let me tell you something. They got their wits about them. It's not like
all their faculties are there.
All their faculties. Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. Well, the woman testified. She testified before Congress. The one that was 107. I was like, wow.
Yes, she did. Yep. So God bless them, and they are awesome. And I just hope that they will finally get some justice for Greenwood.
Yep. And is that whole historical? I think that they're talking. Are they talking about building a museum down there and all of that, or something? Somebody was.
They don't need no museum. They need to give the people the money so they can build back up their community. They're gonna put a highway through some parts of it.
But that's supposed to be part of to bring tourism back to the community so people can make money.
Put those Black people back, and those Native and those Indigenous, put them back on the block where they were, and stop gentrifying, the neighborhood. Because and I'm shouting out to Wanda J's restaurant. Let me tell you something. When you see apostrophe J behind somebody's restaurant name, you know the food is good, okay?
Okay.
And so they did not disappoint. They did not disappoint. So I skipped dinner one night because I was like, I've been eating so much, just because I was so happy to be out of the house also. So
well, yeah. So that's what you're going to see as a surge in the economy as people start. I mean, I'm just the last few days just going all over. The people are out and about now, and I'm like, whoa! People are out, eating, enjoying themselves. So it's going to be an economic boom because people have saved up so much money stuck in the house.
Yeah. Well, no, not my family. They all on Amazon. I'm like, what are you doing? So
the trucks keep coming, right? It's like
yes.
Delivering this.
Listen, man, I want to thank you for being here. Tell us what you have planned for the immediate future, so that we can keep in touch with you.
We have this event on June 26th at 59 Market Street. I'd love to have folks come out and support the minority vendors who are going to be there. It's going to be a whole host of folks who are participating in that. So we hope you can come for that. And just stay tuned. Look, most of my activities and things I'm engaged in, I do post on my social media. So I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter. So, just please hit me up there. People can reach me on I think you've been posting my website. They can hit me up on my website, or, I'm happy to talk to people, help them with any business issues they have. It's a lot of stuff. This is a time that we should capitalize on in many, many ways, not only in the governmental arena, but economically, we better move the ball now because, the economic opportunities that are opening. And then we also have to make sure that the people who are promising all of this participation and equity, that and true that. So, and that means government. We can't let government off the hook, but these private companies that we spend our money with, who our consumer dollars has made some of the largest companies in the globe, that they also do their share to hire and support our businesses as well.
I agree. Well, I appreciate you. And so you can go down to downtown Newark. I forgot the cross street, but it's right next to 7-Eleven, to Source of Knowledge bookstore.
Yes.
And they still have, like, I think 3 copies of the book left. Go get it before they all gone.
Okay, go to Source of Knowledge right there at where Jay's used to be, right that street that Jay's used to be on.
Right.
Yeah.
It's right here.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yep.
So it's across the street from where they had the hook and reel or the crab
It's
place.
across the street from the arena. I know
across the street from the arena at the end of the day. So go see Patrice and see.
Was it political plantation?
Plantation politics. It took me 8 years to recognize. And
you named names in the book, right?
I did, because you know what? Nothing I said was not true. No, everything I said was based on my recollection. I got receipts. When I'm talking about the text message, I still have it.
Okay, right. That's right.
Listen, I got receipts, and you want to? I'll pull an email up from 2011.
I'm gonna read you, and then I'm gonna see if there's one in me.
Listen, why not? Because just based on the knowledge that you have right there, that knowledge should be shared. No, seriously, even if it's just like a how to and why should I, run for elected office? Because all too often we're looked at like, you running for office, so then everybody want to turn around and say they don't trust you. You trusted me for 10 years to run this block association and run your PTA.
Yeah.
And then, but now when I'm seated here where I can really make a difference, you want to turn us, and look at me sideways.
Listen, be careful what you ask for when you might get it, because then your whole posture changes. I remember when I became council president. So you're on the firing line when people are pointing that finger. So I had to learn how to listen. I should say thank you for your participation. They said, "Oh, you learned how to be calm."
I had to learn. It took me a long time to control my face, and just because I wear my heart on my sleeve, so I'm doing a lot better. And
you know keep that poker face, right?
Yes. Absolutely. And my work speaks for me. So,
absolutely.
But absolutely. Get the book.
All righty. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much.
Yes, I'll talk to you soon. Take care.
Bye-bye.
You could just leave me in though. Okay. So that was a really good conversation. I'm glad to have spoken with Mr. Mayor Emeritus Wayne Smith. Listen, y'all, go out and vote. And on tomorrow's show, we're going to have the Democratic chairman from the Township of Hillside. He's going to be here. That's a pop-up. No. I apologize. I'm working with my super producer, Cece. So tomorrow, tune in. We're going to be talking to Chairman Salters from the Township of Hillside. And just to give you a little bit more insight on, because let me tell you something. I encourage everybody who has an opinion to run for the office. You can't complain if you don't contribute. I have said that over and over and over again. And so for the past 20 some odd years, I've been a contributor elected and non-elected. And, community service is a passion of mine. So I encourage you to follow your passion. If you have a problem, then you should have at least an idea of how to solve that problem. All right. So we'll see you tomorrow at 7:00. This is like a bonus week. We're just trying to get folks in and to speak with you before you go out and make those votes. On Tuesday, June the 8th, there's elections for every state office. I can't say that enough. And on Friday, we have a few candidates who are going to come out and speak with us and tell you why you should vote for them. So stay tuned. Thank you. See you tomorrow.